Welcome to On My Mind Monday. Today is Monday, March 24th, 2025. Of course, one of the things I always do when it's this late in the month is just give folks the friendly reminder, the friendly heads up, that in this case, we are only 9 months away from Christmas. So, if you need to get your shopping in, there you go. Also, though, it's kind of special because if you wanted to get a baby in for this year, well, there you go. Now's your time. So, anyway, aside from that, got a few things that are on my mind today. Uh, of course, a lot of this is stream of consciousness kind of stuff coming from me. During the week, I always think, oh gosh, that might be interesting to talk about, or the other thing might be interesting to talk about, those kind of things. But today, I want to talk about Big George. So we're going to talk about Big George. We're also going to talk about a bigger conversation about giants and the Nephilim. And then finally, we're going to talk about big law and why the government really is not designed to be run like a business. It shouldn't be. And we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. So, as many people know, the other day, George Foreman, many folks knew him as Big George Foreman. They knew him because of the Foreman Grill, which sold 100 million units worldwide. 100 million of those grills were actually sold, not just created. 100 million sold. That's a lot. In fact, some people only know George Foreman as the grill guy, which is stunning to me. Of course, I'm a boxing guy. Go way back. In fact, a little bit further up on my bookshelf that you can't see here is actually his autobiography by George, is what it's called. And I had an opportunity to read that many years ago. He put that out, and so I had the opportunity to read that, and good stuff. He passed away the other day. Not really much said about really what happened or why. He was 76 years old, so he was older, but not hatefully older. So we don't know. Apparently, he passed away peacefully with family surrounding him, and so he was a dedicated believer, loved the Lord Jesus, and so he has gone on to his eternal reward. And just a few things just to talk about with regard to George Foreman. George Foreman was an Olympic gold medalist who, in a year where a lot of folks were doing racial protests and that kind of thing, he actually, upon winning his gold medal, whipped out an American flag and just waved his American flag, so proud to be from the United States. In addition, he was the guy who won the World Heavyweight Championship with just an explosive knockout over Smokin' Joe Frazier. This was the same Joe Frazier who had recently beaten Muhammad Ali, and everybody thought that he was just going to be unbeatable at that point. And George Foreman came in and just wiped him out. 2 rounds. It was insane. And in fact, he went on to beat another guy that had beaten Muhammad Ali in Ken Norton. So it was a little surprising after beating two guys that had beaten Muhammad Ali. He went into the ring against Muhammad Ali himself and lost the World Heavyweight Championship in 1974 in Kinshasa, Zaire. He went for a few years trying to maybe reclaim his status and maybe try and get a rematch and all these kinds of things. Boxing politics was a little different back then than what it is today. There weren't often the kind of immediate rematches that we see now. So, things happened. He ended up losing a fight a few years later in 1977. And after that, he had some issues with dehydration and was seeing things and that kind of thing. And it was after that point that he dedicated his life to Jesus, and he started following Jesus and started reading the Bible and became just a disciple of Jesus at that point. And so for 10 years, he had a church in the Houston area of Texas that he witnessed and preached to a lot of folks that were on the street. He did street evangelism. He did all these kinds of things. But then in the late 80s, the money from his world championship days was running out, and he was trying to run a gym for underprivileged youth and trying to fund his ministries and all these kinds of things. And just the money was running out. And so he found that he could make some quick cash by boxing. So he took up boxing again, really just to kind of try and raise money. But as he fought, he kind of gained momentum back in his career, and really came to what to me was a really cool moment where he got a shot against Evander Holyfield for the World Heavyweight Championship. And that was an amazing promotion. I remember going to see that fight back in the day. We didn't have the kind of, pay-per-view streaming services and that kind of thing that we have now. I actually had to go to a place and pay for a ticket to go in and watch. There was a satellite feed at a place where I went to just be able to watch that fight. And that fight was really an incredible thing because a lot of the previous fights that you had seen for World Heavyweight Championships, there was a lot of kind of theatrics and that kind of thing, and acrimony. Of course, the big deal was you were supposed to make it so that the combatants, they didn't like each other, there was bad blood, and they were going to settle it in the ring, and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of it, frankly, was manufactured. But in that case, yeah, there were a lot of interesting stories, like George, he's a bigger guy, and so he had a plate full of hamburgers, and he would eat hamburgers while they were doing their press conferences, or, talking to Evander Holyfield about how are you going to fight such a big man and all that kind of thing. But Holyfield was an undisputed heavyweight champion of the world at that point, having knocked out Buster Douglas, the guy who'd conquered Mike Tyson. So he was the legit champion and really trying to look for his respect as well. But they really, they're both Christian guys. They prayed together. They had just a really great promotion, and that promotion sold like crazy. Now, in the time since, there have been a lot of fights in the over 30 years since then, but it's been really cool to see what an amazing fight that was. Both guys laid it all out on the line. Both guys had moments where they were shaky and had to use all their willpower and everything inside of them, that heart and desire and drive to be able to be the best. And at the end of the day, Holyfield, the younger, quicker, just prime champion, won the decision. It was a clear decision, but George Foreman said, he won on points, but I made a point. And at that point, many thought that maybe he would ride off into the sunset or whatever. And it was interesting because right after the press conference for that fight, he actually flew home on a red-eye flight so that he could be home in time to preach at his church that Sunday morning. So anyway, big story. He went on, fought a number of fights and that kind of thing. But the kind of the pinnacle of the second act of his career was when he fought again. He got another shot at the heavyweight championship in what was a fight where, he was supposed to be too old and too slow. And even though he was very strong and could hit very hard and could take a punch, he was considered to be a little too old and too slow. He fought Michael Moorer, who had defeated Evander Holyfield for that heavyweight title. And I'm going to tell you what, it was an amazing fight. Michael Moorer, a great champion, the first Southpaw heavyweight champion in history. just did a number on Big George. And Big George would have a moment here and there where he would, get some things done. But it just seemed like Moorer was always just a step ahead of him until the 10th round. And in the 10th round, uh, Foreman was able to hit him and kind of shake him. And it looked like Moorer was going to survive it. And then there was just the big right hand that knocked Moorer down and out. He needed several stitches on the inside of his mouth. It was a crazy, crazy knockout. And George Foreman was once again the heavyweight champion of the world at over 40 years old. He was able to regain the title, and even to this day, he is second. Bernard Hopkins was able to regain a title at slightly older than George, but still, his accomplishments are just the stuff of legend, and he is one of those that was one of my favorites to watch. Just such a fantastic personality. He went on to be a commentator for boxing matches and was always fascinating with respect to his insights. He would have insights that the other folks calling the broadcast, sometimes thought were a little strange, and then oftentimes it was interesting just to see how the things that George said bore out. And so, rest in power. Be welcomed into the rest of your Lord, Big George Foreman. You were one of the greats, and I'm happy to know that you went peacefully with your family around you, and good on you. Good on you. So, another thing, speaking of, we talked about Big George. Well, even bigger than Big George would be the Giants. Well, this past week, the latest episode of one of my new favorite shows, House of David, and I talked about House of David a few weeks ago. I really like that show. I really like it. And, let's just be clear. And it kind of has a bedrock or a base of the biblical story, but really it's a TV series, and it's a TV series that is based in that, but it really is going much further. So it is a fictional story based on a true story, if that makes sense. But one of the things that I thought was pretty cool in the latest episode was where they talked about the giants and where did the giants come from. And they referenced information from Genesis chapter 6, where it talks about the sons of God and the daughters of men. It talked about things from the intertestamental period, like the book of Enoch. And this is stuff that I have had an interest in for many, many, many years. And of course, the late Dr. Michael Heiser has written on this. Brian Godawa has written on this. In fact, he talks about when there were giants in the land and that kind of thing. And so it was really cool to see the way that they talked about this, and really the artistic way that they did it. Certainly that their imagining was maybe a little different than what mine would be, but I really thought it was cool. And there are a few things that were cool about it. First of all, the fact that they were talking about this anyway. Secondly, because even though some of this was mentioned in a Noah movie that starred Russell Crowe a number of years ago, the way that they did it in the Noah movie was just, it was goofy. It was just goofy, and it was hard to take seriously, frankly, just watching it. This was interesting, and even though I kind of joked that this looked like some kind of a luxury perfume commercial or something at the beginning, just the way that it looked, but the imagery was really cool, and the way that they did it was really well done. And one of the things that I think will be interesting coming from this is the conversation. Because, in the past, it was a lot easier to kind of sweep the scholarship under the rug because the common Christian or the common Jew, quite frankly, was not really clued in to a lot of this stuff. Um, it's it's the kind of thing that hasn't really been preached in churches by and large. I can say that I really haven't heard it preached in church. When you get into Genesis 6, everybody wants to talk about Noah and the flood, and they kind of scoot right by the first few verses of the chapter, and they don't really want to take into account the other places in Scripture where these kinds of things are mentioned. And so I think it's kind of cool that now we will have that discussion. It was very easy in the past for people to take what I think was kind of a simplistic way out and use what some have called the Sethite view, where they say that the sons of God, oh, really, those were just the loyal sons of Seth, right? They were the loyal believers in God. So the sons of God, and they intermarried with the daughters of men. And so that's what it was. Of course, the folks that I mentioned earlier, Heiser, Gadawa, some of the others have gone into a great lengths of detail on how silly that view is and how it really should not be regarded. And so it's just one of those things that I think is really cool visuals. If you haven't seen it yet, check it out. They talk about the giants. They talk about these kinds of things when you're looking at Goliath and where did Goliath come from, and the giants were not Philistines were not giants. So you're trying to figure out what was going on there, and some of those kinds of things. And so if you kind of dig deep into the scholarship, there's a lot that they bring out, and of course, yes, it's fantasized. It's a narrative that they're using to tell a story and all that kind of stuff. But as I said before, they're using a bedrock of Scripture, but then they're using scholarship on top of that to really help inform the story that they're telling. And so I think that is really good. So that is something I just encourage everybody to check out. I think it's really cool. If people want to look into this kind of stuff further, let me know, and I can give you some materials to take a look at. All right. Well, finally, I wanted to talk about so many things happen with respect to politics and that kind of thing, and it comes really fast, right? And so, the things that I might have been thinking even last Monday night or Tuesday or Wednesday, those things are way in the past in some cases now. But one of the things that I thought would be good to talk about is, part of the problem that sometimes we get when we hire a CEO to be our president, or we bring in a CEO to run government efficiency, and that is that our founders did not set up our republic. They did not, if you look at the way that our founding documents and the way that our founding took place, they didn't set it up for you to be able to move fast. They didn't set it up so that a powerful CEO type president could just do stuff and make it all happen really, really fast. And in the past, when we've had that, we've seen it under a number of different presidents, and the checks and balances in our system have worked to countervail against that whole idea. Well, some of what we have seen just recently has been interesting, where the current administration, the Trump administration, has tried to do a number of things where they're trying to work really fast. And I get why they're trying to work really fast. First of all, he's only a one-term president. He doesn't get to keep doing this. So he's trying to do as much as he can, as quickly as possible, and those kinds of things. He's also trying to get any challenges that need to be met as quickly as possible. He realizes that those things are going to happen because of what happened in his first term. So I get that. But here's the thing, you know, I know he's going to play for the camera and for Twitter or Truth Social or whatever, and he gets all of his minions to do the same thing, and they're all going to whine and they're going to cry about rogue judges, and these rogue judges are undermining the will of the people and all this kind of thing. And I'm just like, okay, first of all, slow your roll. You won by less than 2% of the electorate, less than 2%, and you're trying to govern like you won by 20. Okay, that's let's just get that out there first. Okay, so aside from that, all the people that are complaining about rogue judges when it comes to things like the deportations or just other things that the administration wants to do, these are the same people that were really thankful to have judges to go to when Biden was trying to do vaccine mandates, when Biden was trying to do things like student loan forgiveness unilaterally. They were going to the courts and finding judges who would side with them and issue injunctions. And in the same way that it happened with Biden, it'll happen with Trump, right? It's not, you don't need to impeach these judges. In fact, the whole idea is silly because you would need not only all of the Republicans, but roughly half the Democrats to go along with you. Um, uh, who was it? It was Elon Musk put out something. Oh, you only need 60 senators. No, you don't. You need like 75. So let's just kind of get that out there. You're not going to impeach these judges. Judges aren't typically impeached unless it's found that they have taken bribes, that there is real evidence of real malfeasance, not because they didn't go along with an administration or, quite frankly, simply had questions about the process that an administration went through. Okay? So while I know it can be frustrating for people who want to see things done, and trust me, a lot's already been done. A lot of things have been done, but people get frustrated with the judicial process. Well, part of that is because our founders set up a system of government so that you couldn't do things quickly. You can't set up things quickly. You can't tear things down quickly. And I know the Silicon Valley ethos of move fast and break things. And trust me, they've done a lot of that. But our founders have set things up so our government doesn't run like a business. It doesn't run like things would with a powerful CEO. And I think we should really be glad for that. I know just this morning I saw the news. 23andMe, which has been a popular thing for people to see their ancestry and all that other kind of thing. Guess what? Declaring bankruptcy. We're seeing folks declaring bankruptcy right and left that at one time were very strong companies, but yet they go under. They don't have the same kinds of setup. Now, there's a lot more that goes into it. Certainly, we're not talking about, at least today, all the reasons or all the ways that a government is not like a business, and it shouldn't be. Well, that's really on my mind today, March 24th, 2025. With that, I'm going to get going, get a bite to eat, and I will see you next week.